On November 19th, 2006, we got word that an operation for them had gone sideways. An Overwatch position had been hit. It killed some Iraqi soldiers and severely wounded 2 SEALs. It was really kind of heart-wrenching to hear it, and it sounded like a nightmare. And that nightmare has now been captured for everyone to see in a movie that just came out, and it's called Warfare. And this movie depicts that single operation, and it really depicts it with no holds barred. It is rough to watch, and it includes everything. It includes the horrible wounds that were suffered by the 2 SEALs that day, Elliott Miller and Joe Hildebrand. Joe, Elliott, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it, boys. One thing I've been telling people about the movie is that it doesn't give the audience any clues.
No.
There's no clues for the audience. Like, a great example of that is there's Anglico.
Yeah.
In the building with you guys that play a pivotal role. Anglico played a pivotal role with us.
Oh, yeah.
Like one of my great friends right now is Dave Burke, who is one of our Anglico guys. And, they did scores of missions with us. There's no way that anybody that's watching that movie that doesn't know like what Jocko Willink knows that that's an Anglico guy.
No.
And there's no hint.
Yeah.
A normal movie, they'd say, hey, throw a piece of dialogue in there to explain that those are Anglico Marines. Like, and someone would say, hey, check with the Anglico Marines and see what they say. Hey, Anglico Marine, what's the deal here? Well, here's what's but there's none of that.
No.
They're just like, we're moving forward, and there's no clues for the audience. Just like there's no clues about what's the plan. Mm-hmm. Well, no, you're on the mission. There's no clues, and it's a different feeling for watching a movie. And I have it with all my knowledge. Like, I know exactly what they're doing. I freaking know that AO. I know, like, you didn't pop a 10. Like, that. I was looking at some of the scenes, and I was like, wait, they might have used pictures of my guys on some of those street corners, because like there's good pictures of Task Unit Bruiser. I was like, they might have used. It looks exactly like that.
It was exactly like it.
Yeah, it's the same stuff. But the way the movie is done, you don't get those clues as the audience. No. You're just immersed in it, and it's a really powerful thing. They did a great job of the first half hour of the movie is just like sitting on an Overwatch position.
Yeah, how boring, slow. Yeah.
And I was like, man, if they should do this for a long time, and they did. Yeah. And the other interesting thing, there's no soundtrack.
Nope.
There's just the noises. And I was reading an interview, I think it was with Ray, and they would, like, when Hollywood makes a movie, a shot is like 1 minute.
Yeah.
They were doing like 12, 15-minute shots because they would capture what the guys were really doing. They're hot, they're uncomfortable, they're itching their head, they're adjusting their gear. Like, that's what a actual Overwatch is like, and they captured it all. They got Elliott sitting on the gun, looking, scanning. Man, you want to talk about getting the blood flowing. Like, I'm sitting there watching this stuff and just like, call to prayer comes. This stuff is just so emblematic of what these operations were like. Call to prayer comes, interpreter comes in, hey, here's what they're saying. That's those call to prayer would be followed by like, hey, it's time to get our jihad on.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Finally end up after this massive suspenseful, and do I need to say spoiler alert? Is that a thing? Because we're about to talk about this whole freaking movie.
No, so. I think the trailer shows it all, I think.
Spoiler alert. So grenade comes in, Elliott gets wounded. Mm-hmm. Now, when Elliott gets wounded, what were those initial wounds?
He just had just some frag in his upper arm, like underneath.
Mm-hmm.
It was nothing. The interesting thing, there's 3 guys in that room, and that frag came in. It wasn't a big room, and it only hurt just Elliott. Mm-hmm. And it takes me back to, like, there was a lot of things that we would talk about sitting around the platoon space, or sitting around the hooch there. And Elliott used to say, as a medic, you get hurt, you get shot, you get hit in the street, you better get your ass off the street. He goes, you better start getting, we're not coming to get you. We come get you, we're going to get shot too, And that wasn't a selfish thing. That was like just kind of a wise, like, hey, start trying to get out of the street. And then the same thing with the grenade, because, at Full Metal Jacket there at Corregidor, we got mortared every day. And, you know, we would go up on the roof and see where the mortars would hit. And there was always this, they would hit and then it would spray upwards. So Elliott would say, hey, just lay on the ground. If a mortar comes in or grenade, just lay on the ground. Don't jump on top of it. Just lay on the ground. It'll hopefully get around you. And that's what they did. And 3 people in a small room with a grenade, and it only hit Elliott, and it didn't even hit him bad. He was fine. He would have been fine.
That being said, the call gets made like, hey, he might be fine, but we need to make sure let's casevac him.
Yeah, so the plan was he'd been hit, so we needed to get him out of there no matter what.
And obviously now you're fully compromised when they were putting grenades into your building.
The mission was pretty much over anyway. Yep. You know, this was kind of typical, like, hey, it's time to just go ahead and call it anyway. We've done what we need to do. And, you know, because we always got shot off target. By the end of the Overwatch, it was always like, okay, we're going to leave. You know, we'll extract hot, you know, and we'll get out of there. So this was time to get him out of there. He'd been hurt, no reason to keep him there. So the plan was call in a section of Bradleys, get him in a Bradley, get him out of there, link up all of our units, call in more Bradleys and get out of there, or leave on foot because we patrolled in on foot. We were just down the street from Eagle's Nest.
That's another crazy thing is like you're probably 300, 400 meters away from like full friendly forces. I mean, Eagle's Nest was a fully, you know. Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah, it was just right down the street.
It's freaking, what a wild scene to be in.
Yeah.
So that was the plan. We're going to get him out of here, and then we'll either
consolidate
foot
our
patrol
troops,
out.
either foot patrol or consolidate the troops. Because we knew at that point it was a consolidated or a coordinated attack. Because they had just contacted Alpha Platoon, which was over at Mark Lee, and they pulled our air over to support them. So we could only suspect that they knew what they were doing.
And are you just going to throw him in the back of the Brad?
Yeah, we're just get him in the Brad, and then we're going to head back in the house.
What do you remember about what happened next?
So I remember pretty well most everything, but a lot of smoke. You know, we got our smokes out and heading to the Bradley. I just remember we stacked up in the house. We got our scouts out first, and then Elliott and I were going to go to a Bradley. So even though like I said earlier, he was barely wounded, but he was still wounded. I wanted to keep him close because of the smoke. So I had my hand on his shoulder as we went out the gate, and then as soon as we got right to that Bradley, because the Bradley was just right there. As soon as we got to the Bradley and ramped down, that's when the blast came in. And and that's when everything started to go south.
The way it's portrayed in the film, like slow motion, overwhelming noise, but then overwhelming like silence and slow and muffled. How does that compare? And I think you worked with them to try and give your perspective on it.
Absolutely. And that's it's kind of how it plays out in the movie. It's very realistic to me. I mean, that's the way it seemed, that slow motion. There's a lot of pain that's coming. It's like when you stub your toe and you don't know, it's going to hurt here in a minute, but it's not hurting yet. Same thing. You have that deafening, slow motion pain, but the pain's like dull and it's starting to come more and more acute as the seconds go on. And you start to, as the seconds start going on, you start to realize that, things start to speed back up. You're starting to hear things like gunfire. And you're starting to see a little bit better because the smoke's starting to clear and your haze is starting to go away a little bit. And then I started to realize kind of where I was as far as, in a bad place. But to be honest, my very first thought, and I don't know why I remember this, but I thought that I got hit by an RPG-7. I thought it had landed right at my feet because we had just been talking about these RPG-7s and how much more powerful they were than, so that in my mind, I had just got hit with an RPG-7, which obviously was not the case.
And what was your recognition that your legs were jacked?
So, yeah, I knew that immediately because, obviously the pain, but I remember it being real smoky, not just from our smokes, but just from the blast and the dust. And I remember I could see the sun up in the sky. And I remember trying to raise my feet up a little bit, so my legs up so I could see. To be fair, I've been watching Band of Brothers, so, I just expected this gruesome, this is it. But as I could see, my pants just kind of went up and fell. So I thought my feet were both gone. In my mind, like, they're not there. So, but that's not something you're really worried about at the time. More worried about, getting shot at still, and so getting back in the house. And that's something that Ray and I talked about this later, but I remember telling Ray, because he said I was fine. He's like, "You're gonna be fine." He remember he checked, and he's like, "Your junk's still there." And then I remember, like, I appreciate that, because we talked about these things. But I remember saying that my feet were gone, and I remember him looking. He's like, "No, they're there. They're in the wrong place," because they were like pretty jacked up.
And how many Iraqis got killed?
2.
So 2.
Yeah.
So you just to clarify for people that don't know, you said scouts.
Yeah.
You said scouts went out,
Yeah.
and those were Iraqi soldiers that were like a scout platoon, and so we'd call them scouts. So 2 of those guys were killed.
Yeah.
Your OIC is like concussed bad, and they get you guys inside. And again, you go see the movie. We could sit here and talk about it. Go see the movie. We're sitting here with 2 guys that were there, and the movie was made by a guy that was there, and we're not going to do it justice. We're not going to do the movie justice. Yeah. And it's funny. I put it out on social media, and people were saying like, well, I guess I haven't approved. I don't approve a lot of war movies, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is a good one, but man, this is a good one. And like I said, there's no punches pulled, and so getting the details of that, go see the movie. You guys both end up, you're in pain. You guys get morphine. There's confusion. There's chaos.
Yeah. So one thing the movie does not capture, and we had 1 medic. Elliott was our medic. Mm-hmm. So now we're in a really bad place. We have 2 wounded SEALs. The rest of them are either holding some sort of overwatch or keeping us alive. So we were in desperate need of getting these other guys consolidated to us, which they're in a tick. And, these bad guys we're talking about being, coordinated. It's as if they were coordinated enough to keep them from coming to us. That was their goal, was not necessarily to kill them. I think that was their overall goal, but to prevent them from consolidating on us, to give them an opportunity to get into on top of us and do what they needed to do there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so the movie doesn't even start to allude to Elliott being our medic. Elliott was our medic. So, we had Ray working on me, which is a comm guy, and then Anglica working on Elliott because they thought Elliott was going to die. And I hate to say it that way, but he did not look like there was anything they could do to help him. Mm-hmm. So that's why Anglica was working on him. So yeah, we were in pretty dire straits. We went through every contingency you could possibly go through at that point.
But I want to close out with what Elliott closed out his notes to me. He said, "Today I'm just waking up each and every day with the memory of my old self thinking, what if? What if I just shot that dude? Would it have made any difference? I don't know, but maybe, just maybe it would. But I'm doubtful, because I know now that it was just an IED, and that even if I had gotten the shot, it still would have caught up to me. Those IEDs don't give 2 shits whom they get. And I guess that it was just my time. Better me than anyone else, eh? I'm glad that it happened to me and not anyone else, just because I don't think that anyone else would have the intestinal fortitude to be able to handle what I've gone through. And I'm referring to all the surgeries and rehab, and the worst part of all was the separation anxiety that I suffered from my teammates who were still fighting the enemy and still are to this day." Well, Elliott, I agree. I don't think I know anyone else that could have gone through what you went through and what you've gone through with the same intestinal fortitude and the same incredible attitude.
Thank you for your kind words. I don't know what else to say, other than thank you for the opportunity to be able to share my story and experiences.
Any closing thoughts from you, Joe?
Well, just, this whole process, like Ray writing the story, or I guess he didn't write the story, but telling the story, getting it out there. It's definitely been very therapeutic, I think, for most of us, if not all of us, because as you know, these operations, we all carry a certain amount of guilt with us, a certain amount of, that baggage that, we never had an opportunity to kind of decompress it and like lay it out on the table. So I think we all carried a certain amount, and through this process, we were able to kind of lay it out there and realize like, hey, there was a lot of, bad things that happened that weren't people's decision process that got us there. So we were able to kind of lay all that out, and that's been very therapeutic for all of us. And then just, for Elliott, for him to finally be able to really see on the screen, what happened. Yeah, it's been a huge thing.
Awesome, fellas. Thanks for coming out, man.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for your service. Thanks for your sacrifice for the nation, for the Navy, and for the teams.